Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's the Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been a while since I watched the stuff.
Anytime. I've just been trying to get on different personas, and I record in advance because it's just easier that way, and then just edit like a bat out of hell.
That's the thing I suck the most at editing. That's why on all my side casts, when anybody asks, I say, if you don't need me to edit, you got a better chance of.
I remember that, Fred. You were even joking with Port, Psyops, and a few other people. It was funny. Oh God! So here with me today is Daeron Wilson of Legion Podcast Network and Psychosemantic Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's the beginning of the day is done, and now we're gonna do some blade running.
Oh dear. And we got Daniel Nightmare Nerd Ryan, also in the House that Streams.
Greetings, my fellow horror and sci-fi fanatics, and don't forget my noodles.
Or
Otherwise, there will be trouble. Especially for the people getting noodles in this movie. So I'm going to circle around everybody. Daeron, where was your first introduction to this movie? Was it during the VHS 80s era, or was it late 90s cable?
it was in the VHS era of raiding my dad's movie collection. He's the guy that would do the double VCR dubbing and sign up for all the free HBO things, and I don't know what cut was the first cut that I saw. And it's hard to keep straight. I myself even have that. Yeah, I'm sure it was the theatrical. I've got that Voight Kampf test suitcase DVD collection.
The clamshell just busted.
Yeah, somewhere. But yeah, it was just one of those, oh, this sounds cool sort of things. And it's pretty young.
Were you already familiar with cyberpunk at that point, or was it just kind of like that was kind of what got you into William Gibson and all this other movies that sure is?
Yeah, this was sort of like right after I saw this movie, I looked up who Phillip K. Dick was. And then that was sort of my spark into cyberpunk stuff was Blade Runner, and then noticing that he'd written the short stories that a lot of movies I really liked or were interested in.
Perfect, very good. Daniel, what was your first rodeo with this one?
I was actually a late comer to this one. It wasn't until like the 2000s. Like I saw it advertised on TV frequently, but I only watched it when I decided to get the DVD. Like right around the time of the last Star Wars prequel, I think, just out of sheer curiosity, because I'd heard so much about it.
Nice. I saw this around 06, 07, so that's 2 years before the final cut. It was definitely the special edition because there was narration at the start. I just fell instantly in love with it. It's probably was the first real detective movie I was engrossed by. That says a lot. I mean, I would see parts of other shows and everything, and it definitely aired religiously on FX when the first special edition on DVD came out, and AMC still, I think, plays it religiously to this day. And then when, the final cut came out, Sci-Fi Channel would re-air that one quite a lot. And it was just one of those, everyone talks about it. You hear about its influence. You hear about how it was one of the most, I would see it on both the best and worst movies of the 80s list of all time. It was just that kind of movie. And so it's like, I already knew going in, it's like, it was an acquired taste, but I was prepared to kind of like it because I just, I browsed a lot on both Moria the New Zealand genre page, as well as the movie sci-fi page website, and that's where I just got into all these other stuff like Total Recall, Strange Days, Johnny Mnemonic, and all that. So
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All, sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
could
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Yeah, does it stand the test of time? Ask yourselves that.
I would say definitely.
Right. And Daeron, what's your take on it?
I notice more flaws in it, but I still like it.
I'm gonna agree with you both on that. It's one of those, because it's a sci-fi universe and the effects are very limited, it doesn't have much time to outdate itself, but it's also one of those, it's better than Ridley Scott himself. It's just one of those, it's just like
good way
Ridley has, well, yeah, Ridley's done so many good movies, but he is very much like Michael Mann, where he's just very engrossed by his own material, where it's like, okay, I get it, you know. they're gonna kill each other, they're gonna fight, it's gonna be spectacular, but it's, you know, as I was mentioning with David German before, it's one of those movies, regardless of whether you agree with, you know, the star and the writer's take on the material versus the director, this is not a movie worth arguing over how it ends, how it starts, all the other material. It's just an engrossing, but just escapism. And to have it have been styled after a Western, to create this universe to where you actually do want to just escape with the movie, that is still a rarity. And, you know, Daniel was mentioning some stuff before we pressed the record button on drafts that were unused. It's like, wow, I'm so glad that they figured out that literally is robotic and robs the movie of any soul if you include that. So just,
well, given how many different cuts of this there are, I don't know that they ever quite concluded anything.
That's fair. I mean, they had enough to work with, enough of it landed. Cyberpunk, I mean, is still a genre that is hard to market. It's like, and sci-fi in general, people don't know how to market. It has to have the word star in it, or it needs to be similar to something else. And then, I mean, you can do other movies recently that have done it, like Looper and Gemini Man have basically snuck in a bunch of assassin type stuff while trying to capitalize on the popularity of stuff like Inception and Matrix. So, I mean, the genre is always changing, but the market is still pretty much the same, where people don't know how to promote it other than now give it to a out of studio house that puts a bunch of rap or rock music on it and shows just all the main explosions. So it's just like, this one didn't have any of that. It only had just mystery and the music kind of on its side. So it kind of, you know, when you've inspired, you know, the Terminator, even silly stuff like Trancers, and just, again, you have Philip K. Dick, who's another sci-fi author who's worth getting into just to as your basis. I think it just had enough checks to put on the checklist, you know, so to speak. And most of the boxes were filled. The ones that weren't, you know, they weren't going to fill them up, those ones up anyway. So
cross-genre films like that can be so incredibly tricky. And for its time when it was released, it definitely didn't do that, because really it was ultimately a flop.
Oh, it was an absolute flop. And it's interesting looking at it as a whole now, because you could easily watch it with some of the 70s movies, like any of Tartowski's work. Maybe, if you wanted to, maybe Silent Running or some other earlier cyborg, pre-cyberpunk-ish movie. Because, I mean, it's very cerebral. And I think it's also a shame that I still, on occasion, will encounter people who just find this the most boring piece of shit they've ever seen. And it's like, because to them, sci-fi is just that. It's, you know, Keanu Reeves dodging bullets or people fighting with lightsabers. Is like, well, no, that's sci-fi action. That's not direct, hard sci-fi. So
I will say this is at times a painfully slow movie. There's a lot of exposition that could have been cut without hurting the final product much at all.
I'll half agree. Ridley Scott is just in love with himself. He thinks people are fucking morons. But at the same time, I mean, I'm just so in love with this vision, this whole craftedness. I'm kind of okay with it compared to other movies that where their exposition is just cancer to the ears. It's just like, okay, good grief. I was totally born yesterday. But I think that's just the part that hasn't dated well. And at the same time, I mean, everybody just sounds so natural and fine-tuned with it compared to most film shoots that had a troubled production schedule. So, I mean, I just, if anything, this is the kind of movie you can just watch a scene of it per day and you'll be fine. I really don't have any other things to add to it other than that. Daeron, you were going to kind of remark about other stuff like the comics, the video game, the sequel, and the unofficial sequel.
Oh, right. So yeah, it's the video game I barely remember.
It was like a 97 made for computer game.
Yeah, that was what
alive.
Blizzard, right?
It might have been Blizzard. They did so many crappy
No,
knockoffs.
it wasn't Blizzard. Damn it, I know the studio now because they made the Dune games that I liked.
Oh, Quake?
It wasn't them.
It was like
Westwood.
Westwood. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more fun to think about than it would be to play right now. But I'm curious what sort of things they're going to take from ideas and things from this movie in that Blade Runner 2077 game that's coming out in November unless it gets delayed again.
Hopefully it's not like Duke Nukem where it's a great idea but we don't know what to do with it, so we might as well sell it to the next video game company while we file Chapter 11.
Yeah, just dump it and everybody's like, oh, cyberpunk, and there's numbers. Keanu Reeves, open world, here's my money.
Is that related to it too? I saw that there was that too. There was Cyberpunk something.
Yeah,
something.
Cyberpunk 20 something something. I forget. It's been so long since I was given it for Christmas
Oh.
that I'm just wait. It'll show up one day, and like, oh, are you as worth the wait as Red Dead Redemption 2 was? We'll find out.
You know, that would be interesting if they did a sci-fi version of Red Dead Redemption. That might not be far from what it would divide its audience, but that'd be an interesting take on Blade Runner. They could easily do an Altered Carbon video game, and everyone would also be at home.
Yeah, so that they could do some cool stuff with it, and I'm curious if some of the extra. I don't find the '80s Blade Runner to be super slow. There are, of course, some spots and everything, but with the world, I don't know how long it's been since anybody's revisited the book, the source book.
I must
Do
confess,
Android's Dream of Electric Sheep.
I've
Yeah.
never read it. I've always heard about it, and its work has also been borrowed in plenty of other movies that might as well just be
Oh, yeah.
unofficial Total Recall Blade Runner knockoffs. So I know that the Prometheus, the Alien spin-off prequel Blu-ray claims that it's in the same universe by naming the Wesleyan, something industries that's part of the Blade Runner universe. What universe do you personally think this is part of in some fashion?
Me?
Yeah,
Or
any of you.
I sort of, just because I like it also, I imagine this sort of as a prequel to Hardware. So I guess I would say Hardware
Second
is
one
in.
who brought that up. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. That'd be a good double feature actually too.
Yeah, I could see eventually, and I guess, well, it depends on who you ask, but maybe Hardware's in the Blade Runner universe instead of the other way around. But the replicants or the Blade Runners, I mean, like with the one that came out a couple years ago, and maybe I don't even know if the thing in Hardware had a name that's not a serial number.
Yeah, I don't recall even a name for it. It was just kind of just like, it's out there, They were.
Yeah.
It was a Blade Runner concept, and they were treating it also like Alien, the unseen terror, the don't go out there. And much like Blade Runner, it was much kinder when it hit video stores than it was at the festivals where it was booed. And it's like, jeez, so harsh. The 90s audiences were just as bad as the 80s audience. It's just, man.
Boo it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
boo,
like
that's-
everything, it eventually
a
becomes a
booing.
military thing, and then it kills more people.
Yeah. And it's interesting how it's just kind of always just been one of those, just if they don't reference it, it's not like Aliens where anytime a door opens, it's like, oh, you're totally referencing, that movie. With Blade Runner, it's interesting how basically it's always one of those, you visually reference it, whether it's just you see a flying car in the background or just some other just kind of mysteriously noir lit corporation segment. It's always a visual touch nowadays when you see it referenced in movies. So I definitely consider Altered Carbon to be a direct continuation of both movies. Another good one would definitely be Dark Matter, a criminally canceled free season sci-fi series by the creators of
I
Star.
can see it.
Yeah, just there's a lot of that same. I mean, I don't know if I would put this in the same universe as Star Trek, because you definitely see that with Data and Next Generation cast. But definitely Total Recall, even though that's a way more, satirical, over the top entry. I definitely feel like some of the same corporation people are in there. It's just, ironically, the TV show Total Recall had way more in common with Blade Runner.
Was the show any good? I never checked that out.
If you want just beautiful people and even more boring exposition, check it out. I saw it for free.
Oh, then
I would actually put this in the same universe as Judge Dredd.
Oh, well, the comic or the movie?
Well, the comic and the movie Dredd, not the god-awful Stallone one.
Okay.
But I would see this being Dredd's world, but probably a couple of centuries before Dredd.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because the Stallone movie has so many direct like sound effects and direct references, kind of because it's bouncing off of that and Predator 2. So,
And it's got Schneider. That's an automatic 1-star deduction.
Oh shit. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting though how it is one of these movies. I'll do even one better. I feel like this is in the same universe as Almost Human, the criminally lived TV show, Minority Report, Imposter, another underrated movie by Philip K. Dick adaptation, and definitely Matrix, at least the first one, maybe part 2, because you just see so much of those cities, and it's like they owe so much to it. They might as well be a continuation of it. They would have made more money. It's a labor of love, and it just. I think because it's the godfather of cyberpunk cinema and based off a cyberpunk Godfather novel, I think this is why it's just stood the test of time so much. Even with the year at the beginning mentioned, it's just much like Escape from New York and all these other movies. It's just been discovered by someone somewhere, just like any record. Even if you heard or saw something a different way than most people, you still spoke the same language, so to speak. It just translated rather well. It just, most of it just hit, just like anytime Deckard takes aim or Roy turns around to say something very dramatic. It's just, and all these other supporting actors, as I was mentioning with David, just do a wonderful job. I mean, Daryl Hannah, Brian James, you can't think of anyone who isn't remembered for this. It's not all these actors. When you first bring them up on IMDb, this is going to be on their resume at one point. So, the first 4 titles that come up. So, it's iconic because I think everybody has something to show off and do something well with. It's just one of those rare movies, as opposed to there's 1 or 3 main things that made the movie. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the score is definitely. I mean, it's the same people who did Chariots of Fire, for God's sakes. So yeah, the score is definitely memorable. It's definitely one of the few. I think this is definitely where people take note from both Vangelis and even Tangerine Dream, where they're like, you got to have a very dreamy like score in order to invite us to actually escape with the film, instead of just stare at it and say, it was interesting, I didn't get it, So I think everyone's taken enough pointers, and it's just a rare case where everyone was inspired. That's why it's stood the test of time. And I still occasionally will see people just trash it. I saw so many people trash 2049, and I was like, well, bullshit. You didn't see the first movie. You saw the ad. You thought it was a Matrix type movie. Not the case. The trailer is never right. And seriously, that's fucking stupid. See the last movie, then see the next movie. Boom, done.
I waited a while on the 2049 and didn't see it until this year.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I wait for hype to die down on all the other stuff. That was one of my last few cinema gatherings I enjoyed, but it's one that divides everyone. So I'll let you share your take.
I liked it. My wife fell asleep halfway through.
Same case with my friends. There's so much chaos going on in it. I don't know how you could fall asleep. It's my sister cried at it, loved it. I will say though, one of my friends who had just seen, there was apparently a recap video that was trending on the web at around the time it came out. So that's what a lot of people saw, which is silly. I mean, the movie was on all the movie channels all the time, so I don't. Well, it's not hard to find people.
It was on HBO forever, and I can't believe I didn't watch it when it was on there. I ended up buying it because I knew I'd enjoy it enough for at least to be the cost of the money.
Right? I was too busy watching so many other movies inspired by it. In fact, I saw the awful Minority Report TV show. I was like, I should have just rewatched Blade Runner.
It's also a movie that you can pop on, like you said, you can see a scene a day or pop on in the background where you're doing some editing. I know I wrote at least one shitty paper on its use of shadow and stuff in college.
Why was it a
I
shitty
couldn't
paper?
find it. I looked really hard, but I don't have it in my, at least the drive where I have most of my other college papers.
Oh, jeez.
If I find some terrible moments, I'll highlight them and pass it on.
Jeez. Oh man, it's definitely, I think, a miracle, and I think what Hollywood's been doing so bad is because movies have to pretty much be similar to another movie in order for them to sell. I think where every other cyberpunk movie went wrong is it just literally had to take direct scenes, either from producer interference or just people liking the movie too much and just wanted to throw it in there to where it's like their movie became derivative as a result. It's definitely like a song that, today's musician would say, oh, I just made that song by, when I was high and I was listening to too much of Van Halen and the Doors.
I like big butts and I got live.
It's definitely people being shameless about their shamefulness. Is like, jeez, it's like, okay,
like Vanilla Ice for old reference.
Oh yeah. It's like,
no,
I swear it's different.
It's different. Yeah, I changed up the beat 3 different times. It's different. Yeah, it's like sampling is still sampling, guys. MC Hammer. And he's still doing it. It's amazing. Every 3 years, I kid you not, he's in a commercial. It's like, really, dude. It's like he's so proud of himself, he cannot help it. And so, I do feel like Ridley Scott kind of gets to that point where even he, as a career, is like, he doesn't ever claim, oh, I'm not bloody making the same movie again. It's like, yeah, but you're approaching it kind of the same way, where you just feel like that's your only direct style. And it seems like that there's so many of his recent movies where it's like, that's the same Ridley Scott he made. I feel like he kind of had an identity crisis. He programmed himself like one of these replicants.
Much as I hate to give this guy credit, the Nostalgia Critic a couple years ago reviewed the movie Hannibal, which is a horror fan. I wanted to give that movie a chance, but I think he said it perfectly. You look at the visual style of the movie, you could tell that's the point where Ridley Scott went from artist to artiste.
Yes, you did mention that. And I think he's pretty much said it well, because I look at American Gangster and The Martian. Those are movies that I think, in the hands of any competent filmmaker, I think would have been good. They just don't feel like Ridley Scott movies to me. Even the same thing with some of his movies. You wouldn't be mistaken for thinking, Tony Scott could have easily come onto the set and directed some scenes one day, because it has that look.
I'm curious about that Raised by Wolves thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I would have been amiss if I didn't mention that or Westworld again. Those also feel like they're direct sequels. In a way, that might be Ridley Scott saying, I want to make a unofficial Blade Runner TV show, but do it my way. Because it seems like it seems to be having a lot of the kind of the morbid alien kind of trailers. It's like, okay, I don't think there's going to be much acting or dialogue in this, but at the same time, again, the whole just concept is like robots in the wild, acting like, cavemen. It's like, that's a good genre selling point. Many people instantly are looking at the cover and saying, I'm checking that shit out. Sign me up for HBO Max, free trial. I think it's just inescapable. Everybody knows it's just going to be just a pain in the ass just to get the rights. Yeah. Warner Brothers, and you got Dick's Estate, then you got just other people, David Webb Pebbles might say, at least, I don't want to be credited for that piece of shit. That doesn't have anything to do with my original draft. So you're going to have all of that nightmare. So it is just better. I think we all just solved it here. It's better to just reference it and consider it a sequel in your own head than.
We call them knife joggers.
All these memories. Have you read Rutger Hauer's autobiography, All These Memories?
I have not.
Should have.
It's a great book because he disses on it and just some of the standards, how it's just, he was in so many other HBO world premiere movies that were similar to this, Split Second. More or less, I think it's another good. That brings me to so I think there were some comics of this, like by Dark Horse or somebody, or
if anyone would have, it would have been them.
Okay, let me look it up again. But I Soldier, the 1980 film by the same writer, was supposed to be a sequel. Then they changed the name, and it's one of those I'm still on the fence about. I should give it a rewatch because it's not mind-bending awful, but it is just one of those. It's like, it's kind of a labor of love, but it just feels like something got lost in translation there somewhere. I'll let you guys take it on. It's got unemotional Kurt Russell must defend a planet because he's an unstoppable killing robot
with glorious hair.
Yeah, what the hell was that about? His hair changes frame to frame, and I'm not that kind of nitpicker guy, but I just noticed it because it just stood out. I really don't know what to think about that movie nowadays. It's just, it has a rough beginning and it gets slightly better, but yet at the same time, it just seems like, even before you realize that it's, a Paul W.S. Anderson popcorn movie, it just seems like no one knew what they wanted it to be. It was even by Fox, so they don't really care what they wanted it to be. Is it even really? Is it even officially part of the canon?
I always kind of lumped it in with Universal Soldier.
See, that's what's weird too, is Universal Soldier, it's also very shallow, yet it's less shallow than that one. So it's just like, that's what's weird, is like they were just taking props from Next Generation and just putting them on Dolph, and Dolph kind of was better. If he or Vic Armstrong weren't doing, second unit stunts and having fun with the movie, and Ali Walker wasn't in that, I don't think it would have done as well. Because, and that's the other thing too. Directors by default are hired guns. I don't think it really is just the same creative stuff. I think it just went all the way back to whatever script was in the vault, and nobody did any other extra checking before any of it just, got put on there. And if anyone has a different cut of the movie, it's definitely long gone or burnt up in the vaults. So, I mean, more or less, this was developed, the original movie was developed by the Ladd Company, and I'd like to know just kind of the history of that, because I never really can find anything on when they first adapted it, like when they first went into production. It just seemed like it just kind of was just out of the blue. They were just like, let's just adapt Philip K. Dick's work and let's just make a movie. I think it's interesting though that it's launched. It's just one of the few movies where the visual effects are very minuscule, and it's all about kind of just basically just so many in the moment things. If you take away the sci-fi aspect, it's really just a modern day made noir film. A neo-noir, if you will. So I think it's just interesting that so many other sci-fi movies from that point on, even if they weren't directly cyberpunk, they had to have some noir segments. They had to have some saxophone, jazz playing. They had to have a detective character, maybe even just a robot cop.
Can we add more rain?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, let's have every... Oh, and that's so true. It's like everything has to be like Highlander or something. Is somebody must end Matrix Revolutions. There you go. Everybody's got to have a fight scene in the rain. It can't be anything. You gotta be in the rain. That's
it would help if you're holding a dove, but you don't have to be.
You're right. We'll fix it in post.
Hold this green thing. We'll figure out what it's going to be when we're done.
I mean, it's better to have a paper dub than an actual an actual dub and then be called a John Woo knockoff. Oh man. At the time when people were bashing this, they called it Blade Crawler and science fiction pornography. I think those are compliments. Sorry, it's just it is a sexy looking movie, and I'm not even a fan of Shaq.
This movie did nothing to quell the burning flames for 1980s Daryl Hannah. For me.
Baby.
If I had to pick a way to die, having my head squished between her thighs would have to rank up there.
Yeah, it's like that Monty Python movie thing. This man has been allowed to choose his own means of execution.
That's something completely different. Do you want the Daryl Hannah in the Popo Greenwick Village, or do you want the Daryl Hannah in this movie? Yeah.
Do you want the number 6? You want the number 6?
Oh God, that's great. Oh Jesus. So, gents, any closing thoughts?
Ultimately, I think this is visually one of the most stunning films ever made.
It definitely made me a fan of Joanna Cassidy. But yes, it's definitely a visual movie that everybody references at some point, and other movies you really have to pick them apart. And when I see someone say, I was inspired by Blade Runner, it's like, I'll have to literally go through their sketches or just other stuff and direct scenes that they're meaning where they reference it, and I'll be like, oh, okay.
That's what that was.
It felt more like Running Man. It was that brain dead. Okay, but I see what you mean. There was a visual cue at one point, and not to knock Running Man, but I'm just saying a different kind of cyberpunk movie. So it's like, it's interesting when you have to just pick it apart. It's like, you have to be pretty much in a certain kind of cyberpunk mood to get all the direct references. And there's definitely other shows where the actors themselves are just unintentionally kind of referencing their roles in this movie. William Sanderson is the biggest victim. What the hell happened to his career? He stars on a bunch of HBO shows, but I see him on bit parts, like just really stupid direct-to-video crap, and then a brief part on Babylon 5 is like it's like he never left the set of Blade Runner, and he was just frozen in time, and that's somehow they were able to include him in the cut. I don't get it.
Well, didn't he write an autobiography of his own? And Louis says, "Yes, I'm that guy."
I think so. It's in the
podcast. The rough and tumble life of a character actor.
I love it. Oh man. I used to have a VHS copy of Dead Aim. That is not a good movie, but everybody has wanted to find a copy of that movie because it's a cover of it is used for Corbin Burnson's character in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it makes sense. That's a Shane Black production. So I mean, gents, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Well, as always, the Nightmare Nerd can be found on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and also on the Slasher app. I got more stuff coming up because it is Halloween season, so I'm putting out videos each week.
Yeah. Daeron.
Let's see, Psychosemantic. If you look up Psychosemantic, one word in most places, except for Twitter, you find that there. Somebody's squatting on that. So on Twitter, I'm at Political Movies. And you will also probably find me a little bit more because it's election season, or it is at least as of recording. Edit that out if you're putting this out in a while. And my sidecast, well, my sci-fi sidecast is kind of on hiatus while co-host Jerry Herring is moving. But I've got one called the VD Clinic with my co-host Vanessa. Luckily my name starts with a D, so I got to replace the D when he retired. That's movies and books and comic books and stuff like that. Short stories paired up.
You get
Look
an
up
A for
VD Clinic. Huh?
You get an A for effort.
Thank you. Look up VD Clinic podcast if you want that. Look up VD Clinic if you need some other information.
Is that still on Podbean or did it never launch in there?
The VD
I thought
Clinic?
it was-
It might be on Podbean. I don't have to do any of the editing for that. So it's on the Legion Podcast Network and wherever else. I think it's on Spotify and iTunes. I think I got kicked off. I think Psychosemantic got kicked off Spotify for something, but you can find it most everywhere else.
Spotify, man. I've been so picky.
I think I got dinged for a copyright infringement on a song that's mine.
I've been
You
seeing
know?
everybody saying a lot of that. I hear it on every other episode of Cinema Psyops. They're having to be more careful. I'm like, I think they're being more careful than they need to, just because
Probably
so many other people got taken down and they don't want to be next.
Doesn't hurt to be cautious.
Maybe it's from 3 years ago when I used Christopher Walken singing the song from The Jungle Book. Disney probably got me.
My god.
If anyone would, it'd be them.
Yeah.
What would they edit out if they owned Blade Runner? Since we're talking about Daryl Hannah and what her CGI hair over her butt. Well, we didn't talk about that, but we're talking about Daryl Hannah.
Might as well talk about Splash. So there you go. Yeah. Well, someone had to do it. If someone felt that someone was going to put themselves in a washing machine because they've seen Lilo and Stitch too many times, there's just no telling. I mean, Jesus. I just can't imagine that. I mean, I've had stupid ideas, but I mean, really?
Desperate people.
Hopefully
do desperate
nothing.
things, what can I
Hopefully
tell you?
nothing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Anytime, brother. And Daeron, lovely having you on here. Welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
If you need any additional contribution, I'm down. No, as of checking this now, your VD Clinic is not on Podbean, but that's okay. I can listen to it on the web app, and it's all good. Thank you all for being here. This is a fun, very brief, wow, shortest we've ever gone. 40 minutes. Damn.
Well,
You either hate us or we're really awesome and efficient. Like a
No,
replicant.
Well, hell, I didn't even mention the Keanu Reeves movie, Replicas, which was actually better than expected.
Just avoid rambling on this one.
Yeah, we are pretty. I'm pretty bad at rambling. Rob is also bad at rambling, but he's not on here because he's celebrating that his mother does not have cancer. But
good for him.
Hey,
I'm just
that's
happy.
awesome.
I'm just happy for him. It's like that. I can't imagine that. Everyone's head would be in the cloud, when they got to worry about Corona and politics, and then they're losing a parent. That fucking sucks.
Yeah. If you want to, I don't know why this popped into my head, but the episode of Cinema Psyops, speaking of court, his House on Haunted Hill episode from a couple years ago that I was on, that was the day my mom called and told me that she was going to die from cancer. She's still alive. She beat it. But like right before I went to record, she's like, "Hey, goodbye." I'm like, "What the
Thanks, Mom.
can I cuss on here?"
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck,
We're
Mom?
not G-rated.
Okay.
But
yeah. So I was all sorts of weird on that Cinema Psyops episode.
I
That's
wonder
one way to
why-
break the news.
I thought you were in deep hurting from the movie, but okay, yeah. It's definitely one of some of these podcast episodes to go back to, and it's like, I wonder how any of these will date from years on in. And it's already so much trouble just finding an audience, and kudos to anyone who has just a loyal following. I've actually tried to be on Legion a few different times, haven't heard back, so I'm just like, okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If I had any sort of poll, I'd put in a word for you because I've been listening to more of your episodes recently.
Oh,
No,
gracias.
but and it's pretty sweet. I'm
Thank you,
halfway
brother.
through your most recent one, but
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
liked the horror franchises that never were, or whatever the title
Oh, really?
that one
Okay.
was. That was fun to listen to.
Thank you, brother. Damn. That was one we didn't even try on.
Those are sometimes the best, for real. It's, the authenticity of the conversation shines through.
It was funny how it just happened. It's just like, and then we were just finding other filmmakers who wanted to basically take a non-horror franchise and make it a horror franchise. It's like, man, okay. Jeez. What that would be. David Ayer wants to do a Star Wars horror movie? Yeah, okay, sure.
There's probably plenty of stuff in there. I'm not too versed in the Star Wars world.
Oh, good. I think that's the other issue too, is that basically everybody's having to play catch up with every other franchise, and then there's so many other people where if they don't see it then and there, they just don't care. Basically, I think podcasts is all about just feeling in the moment, and that's why I just outlined this all in advance. I just say, okay, if you're gonna do this, just make sure that you're just ready to do it, as opposed to because I was on a few other podcasts and they just fell apart because they're still going, but they're not good. They're just, and I'm not saying that to be a dick. I just said just no one was making use of their time. They just kind of wanted to hear themselves talk, and just like, okay, well.
It's one of the reasons why I often liken podcasting to being in a band, because I've done more time playing music, but music scenes and podcast scenes have a similarity. And podcasts, there's some podcasts that are great, but nobody talks to each other when they're not doing it. There's some that kind of there's some that kind of suck, but everybody loves each other.
Well, that, or like a music session is like you didn't play your best solo album, but at least it was done with love, to where it's like, I forgive you, as opposed to someone else who just really was just so in love with themselves. Same thing with, we're talking movies. I prefer someone who did a homage that still wasn't produced with the best cameras, but at least was made with a labor of love, versus, okay, this is a vanity project, and as a result, it really killed any enjoyment.
Yeah, we've got, many ways that analogy holds through. So, thanks for asking me to play on your gig tonight.
Anytime.
This was interesting.
We'll keep the bar extra open for any encores.
Have a pleasant evening, gents.
Anytime, brothers. I can't believe it's 7 year areas. Jeez, it's 5 over here still. Damn. Okay.
You're in Texas, right?
Yeah, actually, it's now 5:40. Jesus, man, this day's flying.
Oh, time to go get some noodles in the rain.
Noodles in the rain. All right. Godspeed to you.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up